This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and mindfulness. I'm Diane Hansen, communications consultant and management consultant, and with me is Christine Salvo, therapist, certified mediator, and certified hypnotist.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Oh, how was your weekend? It's kind of funny how different the weekend is from the work week. You have this flow and this conscious kind of ride through your weekend. You're seeing your friends, you're doing what you want to do, you're doing your chores, but there's kind of a presence about it all. And then you go into the office and everyone seems so disconnected.
Yeah, you even have like a weekend close. At least I do.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. Being working for myself, I think my weekend clothes are my all the time clothes unless I'm in front of a client.
I definitely have weekend clothes.
Yeah. So there's this disruption from this flow of presence and consciousness and really great conversations with friends and people that you choose to connect with. And then you go to this somewhat unchosen family and, how do you translate? How do you get from the best of the weekend to finding the best of your work week? So this really brings up the idea of consciousness in business.
Management and who's running the show.
Exactly. And conscious leadership is a big topic. There's two really big topics right now in terms of leadership and innovation in leadership. One is sustainable leadership, so drawing down your organization to a purpose bigger in the world, making a difference, contributing back. And a lot of annual reports have line items that go back to that. The other side of it, and you see a lot of innovative companies doing this, is bringing conscious leadership and consciousness principles and mindfulness into the workplace.
Yeah, and things I believe they really are changing. The values of business are starting to align with the values of realigning with, I guess, our humanity. That, family first, flexible schedule, that I want a boss that inspires me, that I can believe in. I want to work for a company that I feel aligned with, that there's purpose there. I no longer want to trade my time just for a paycheck. And I'm at least seeing it when I'm looking at the news and statistics and different things like that people are choosing other ways now. So conscious leadership, I feel like is something that's going to be really important in the future. Like for my children, I don't know that they're going to just work for a place and be a number or a machine. I think that values are really changing.
Right, exactly. Values are changing. And I think the companies that people choose to work for will also be based on those values. But values-based leadership is something that a lot of people are talking about: values-based leadership, conscious leadership, and sustainable leadership. It's all getting kind of lumped in this area of we need to be more aware of the impact of ourselves and the impact of our business.
Absolutely.
And having that trickle down to the bottom line rather than this, very old school mentality of do what it takes to make the shareholders happy.
Yeah. And I do think there's a point where everybody gets to win. That's the mediator in me, this kind of win-win. And it's funny because when I'm actually doing a mediation, what I tell people is everyone actually loses. It's not a win-win. It's a slight loss. So everyone should feel a little bit uncomfortable. So part of this conscious leadership movement or at least development is about, maybe the bottom line does suffer a little bit. Just a little bit, though. What are we willing to sacrifice for that? So longer-term employees, happier employees, poor employees that are choosing more flexible schedules, that are having time to do things during the workday that are important to them, that help them refocus, help them disperse some energy. So yes, the bottom line might be semi-affected because you're not going to be grind, but you're probably going to have, like our first episode on burnout, less of that. We're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to have more engaged and long-term employees. So our bottom line does change there because we're not having to retrain all the time. It's really expensive to lose employees and train employees.
And actually, studies are starting to prove that those things actually help line versus make a hit to it. So you might see a direct budget line item hit. However, the effect and the impact for 4-day work weeks are becoming more common in other countries other than the US, and they're seeing huge productivity lifts
Right.
from it. The longer breaks during the workday, the flexible work hours, flex time, the ability to work remote. All of these things are increasing. In fact, if you go on Indeed.com and you look up remote jobs, you're going to see so many more than you did even 5 years ago. Companies, specifically companies that are in the service industries, are seeing a huge benefit to remote and flex work. So this consciousness is raising, and it's not necessarily a standpoint of we're going to do this and it's going to hurt our bottom line, but it's going to help our employees. The point of business is for the bottom line to be healthy, but it's the way we approach that now that is so incredibly different and
Yeah.
actually refreshing.
I agree. I totally agree. And I also could say, maybe it won't affect the bottom line. I agree with you there. But initially, sometimes that can be the barrier
It can be
of the fear that it will.
the big fear,
So,
especially to like a CFO or somebody who's looking or somebody who owns that budget.
yeah. And this change can be a little uncertain as
Right.
well.
Absolutely. Like this is what I have to give up now to get this. However, it's all going to balance out. And even if we see an uptick in the bottom line, it's going to be one that might allow me to replenish. And now I can have both. I think that we exist in this or that culture. And this or that culture makes us think that it's all or nothing.
And we need to replace that with and.
Mhm.
And are the magic words now.
Yes.
I can have this and
Yes.
that I can have a great bottom line, a healthy bottom line, employees that are motivated, that want to work for this company because they believe in what we do, and have them healthy and happy and well
Right.
adjusted and well balanced. So when we're, looking at this topic, I looked up, on our favorite search engine and found an article by Forbes.com on 5 ways to be a conscious leader. And basically what it's saying here is, and I'll just quote straight from the article, just the first sentence because I love it. Conscious leaders speak with integrity, lead with authenticity, and hold themselves accountable. They listen with the intent to understand and not just respond, and they do it by being in tune with themselves and the world around them. So I'm trying to imagine right now if, I was being interviewed by a company and that's what I was met with. That to me, that sparks passion, that sparks enthusiasm, that sparks meaning. That's even somebody to look up to. I do believe there was a time in history, if not now, where we did look up to our leaders, our bosses even, right? It wasn't like this big authority figure that was like, oh, the pain in the butt. It's more this like, I want to be like that. This person's demonstrating characteristics. And when we're talking about conscious leaders, that's what I see.
Yeah. It's that referent leadership that is a leadership style that you have the type of leadership style that people want to emulate. They want to follow. They are reverent of. And of course, the leadership style that is more authoritative is you're going to do this because I'm your boss and I said so.
I don't see that working. That's never really worked for me, I got to be honest.
And for some people, they need an authoritative boss. They need an authoritative boss for whatever reason, and that style works for them. And then there's the legitimate leadership, which is basically legitimately, I'm in this place because I have this experience, and you respect that experience, and kind of it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at the leadership styles, this conscious leadership is really an expansion of the referent leadership style, and how to become more of a leader that is connected, conscious, communicative, and aware.
Yeah. So actually, the very first thing on the 5 steps of being a conscious leader is cultivating self-awareness. And it's basically, the synopsis is know who you are as a person, as a leader. And if you don't know, start taking the steps to figure it out. There's a lot of personality tests. There's a lot of consulting companies. There's a lot of ways that you can do trainings for you and your staff. I remember a few years ago, I was working in an agency and we had to take these tests on what animal we were, right? And then we all got to guess what each other was. And some people were camels and some people were frogs and turtles and I was a monkey. And we all predicted that. But what that really did for us was it gave us a way to better understand and communicate with each other. So if I'm a monkey and I'm really high energy and ooh, ooh, ee, ee, and all over the place and always like trying to have a good time, and I'm talking with a camel or a turtle, they have a different pace of conversation and of listening and of working. And so when the two of us work together, that could, without that knowledge and information, create some clash. So I want it done fast and happy, and they want me to, tone it down a few notches and speak slower and reduce my expectations. So I think it's brilliant when companies are able to do these, and other companies use the color one. What color are you? Are you more red? Or are you more blue? If you're more blue, you try to be more red. If you're more red, you try to be more blue. And then understanding the different ways. Mm-hmm. But as a leader, you need to know yourself first.
Absolutely. And I was so intrigued by this camel, turtle, monkey. The other one is lion. And there's been a number of articles written about these different communication styles and how each of them deal with conflict. So, like lions are competitive and dominant and strong and big picture and confident, and they approach conflict in a very aggressive and direct manner. I think I might be a lion because I'm like, there's conflict. Let's solve it right now so it go away. so I could see that. And
remind me what the monkey is.
So the monkey, there's the competent camel who is focused, logical, specific, detailed, and structured. There's the much loved monkey. Yay! Spontaneous, friendly, joyful, talkative, and energetic. The monkey approaches conflict by trying to please all parties involved. The monkey is an advocate for anyone that they feel are being taken advantage of or is the underdog. The unhealthy monkey may approach conflict with inappropriate humor or by minimizing the situation at hand. Very interesting. And there's a tranquil turtle, agreeable, laid back, flexible, wise and calm and consistent. And yeah, if you think about it, if you think about all these animals, like I'm thinking about Zootopia, right?
Definitely.
I'm thinking about Zootopia. Yes. And how in Zootopia, you've got the rabbit who wants to be the cop. And that's just really out of character for a rabbit. A rabbit isn't supposed to want to be a cop. A lion's supposed to want to be a cop. But you have all these. It's really a zoo in the workplace. You've got this workplace zoo, and we all act differently. And if we don't build consciousness around that, it's kind of like everyone let the animals out of the cages.
Right.
And bad things happen when you let all the animals out of the cages. And what happens actually is they start to group up with their own kind when they run off. So the lions go off with the lions and the turtles are super slow and hang back. And it's siloing, really.
Yeah. And that conscious leadership, when you're doing these kinds of trainings and figuring people out, just as we were reading that out loud and we're all laughing, at ourselves and at each other and the whole thing, it's an icebreaker. But as a leader, I want to know how you operate, because
Right.
that's going to change my style with you. And I really believe that the old adage of like bring everybody to you is outdated. You have to learn who's in your environment and you have to learn how to communicate with them. Because as a great leader, is it not your job to bring out the best in your staff?
It is. And there's a really great image that I keep seeing on social media with the difference between a manager and a leader. And the manager is like, pull the rock. And the leader is in front saying, let's all pull the rock. And it's such a slight thing, but it's such an important thing to be conscious that as a leader, you're not being this directive, pull the rock, versus, okay, we're all in this together. Let's all pull the rock. Here's how we're all going to pull the rock together. And I mean, and it's a lot to balance actually being a
It
leader.
is.
It's
Yeah.
not a small task.
And I kind of want to bring that into the family right now, because it's really not all that different from parenting.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just left a session where we talked about what do you learn more from, when someone force feeds you the lesson or when someone lets you figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
So create the environment and let people find their own lessons, because it's so much more fruitful when I've figured it out myself rather than somebody's told me what I was supposed to get from that experience. And I mean, that's just me. That's not everyone. But being a leader isn't just at work. And sometimes we have a hard time switching those hats. But when we're parents,
Yep.
we're leaders there too. Are we being conscious leaders in our home?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're leaders in our relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and we're leaders in our activities that we have on a day-to-day basis. I do community theater. I constantly have to recognize where I am in the pack on the stage, because when on the stage, the director is the director. I have control over my character, but I probably shouldn't be making suggestions for somebody else's character. And I have literally had to stop myself several times from just going unconscious and going into the mode of, no, you should sit here. This doesn't feel right. You should sit here.
I love this. I tell people all the time, sit on your hands and bite your tongue.
This onstage direction, but it's really not just about being the leader. It's about self-leadership.
Yeah.
It's all about being conscious within the way you lead yourself. Knowing your type. Knowing, if you're a lion or a monkey or a turtle, or that is so incredibly cool to have it really put that way, because it's so understandable, because we know animals.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at least know what we think of them, right?
Exactly.
They have their little art. The second thing on the list is check your influence. So really making sure that you're around people that elevate you. And I guess my interpretation of that is you don't only have to hang out with lions if you're a lion. Diversify your group, because we can all learn from each other. And we don't necessarily relate all the time, but that's one of the gifts, is if I'm with a camel, they're going to see a situation from a completely different perspective as me as a monkey. So, but make sure they're people that are elevating you, that they're people you really like some characteristics about them. This next one, number 3, is meditate.
Meditation. It's not just for bedtime anymore.
So taking it out of the yoga studio and really bringing it into the workspace.
Yeah.
Clarity of thought, with grounding, with not being in an emotional space when you're making decisions, especially that affect others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I like to call it the power of the pause. What the Forbes buzzword is for it is purposeful pause. So a purposeful pause is a mini break in the momentum and speed of our mind. So purposeful pauses give us the space to reset and recenter. And when we do, we're more likely to make conscious choices about our work and our activities that are productive, creative, and compassionate. And I think what's really interesting is a shift that's starting to take place, although very slowly, with companies being okay with spirituality in the workplace.
So it's really interesting. So I want to read these last two and then we'll have you. So number 4 is be intentional. So it's talking about, have intention, know what you're doing, know what your plan is, know what your purpose is, no winging it. So for this conscious leadership, when I'm going to talk to Susie, I know what my intention is. I know a little bit about Susie. I know her animal. I know how she works. I know the whole thing. And I'm approaching her in an appropriate way with intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's beautiful. But this I find really interesting. So this is on the Forbes, right? Forbes.com.
Yes.
And the last one for conscious leadership is practice the 4 agreements. So if you're not familiar, this is by Don Miguel Ruiz, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful author, at least in my opinion. And I'll just quickly read his 4 agreements. And I find this awesome. So, number 1, be impeccable with your word. Say only what you mean and don't gossip or speak negatively. 2, don't take anything personally. Nothing that others do is because of you. It is all a projection of their own reality. Number 3, don't make assumptions. Instead, have the courage to ask questions and communicate. And 4, always do your best. Your best may change day to day, but by doing your best, you can avoid self-judgment and regret. These 4 agreements forge a path to a newly conscious way of leading our lives, our teams, and our companies. So when you just talked about the blending of spirituality, and I just read that off of Forbes, it kind of gave me a little goosebumps.
It does, because it's starting to be validated. And that is, when you look at the adoption curve, you have those early adopters who are coming in, they're bringing meditation to their companies, they're bringing consciousness in their companies and book studies into their companies and coaching into their companies. And you're always going to have those who are in the wait and see mode. But the sooner you adopt this, the sooner you cultivate a culture of communication, of awareness, of intentional decision making, of the ability to pause and not react, which will cut down on workplace conflict, and just so many more benefits to adding in this practice, just one simple practice of meditation or teaching people purposeful pause.
What I also hear too is efficiency. It sounds almost counterintuitive, but how efficient is it to take these breaks, to not take things personal, to cut down gossip, to be intentional, to elevate your space, to understand your employees? It actually cuts down on time, which equals productivity. So it all actually works. Yeah. It just looks different than it used to.
Exactly. It's conscious equals cash flow.
Ooh, I like that.
And it's true. When you have employees who are not spending their budgets willy-nilly based on just gut reaction on something, and they're able to pause before the purchase or pause before the action, you create that vacuum where new ideas can drop in, innovation can drop in, and you might be amazed where it takes your company. So my challenge to you this morning, if you're listening to this show and you're in a leadership position, give it a shot just with your team. I'm trying to get it out through the whole company. Just do it with your team. And some people aren't going to be bought in, and that's totally okay. No, forcing people to meditate. But some people are really going to benefit, and eventually all will benefit once that trickles in. So yeah, try something new. Try with the consciousness of your company.
Yeah, just be aware.
All right. This has been Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out. I'm Diane Hansen.
It's Christine Salvo. Have a wonderful day.
Have a great morning.